Hello and welcome to another episode on Srilingo. Infertility is an issue that affects men and women. The society we live in thinks that infertility is a condition that is only related to women. Men or women, nobody should be made to feel ashamed. Nobody should be made to feel they are worthless because of this condition. Today, I have Fatima Kathrada, is a qualified pharmacist and a lecturer at the Wits University in Johannesburg. She is also very passionate about women's health and is a researcher as well in this regard. Fatima's dedication to this field is deeply personal. It's inspired by her own struggle with infertility. She's committed to empowering women to take charge of their health and raising awareness about women's health issues. This passion has led her to found the educational initiative Women's Health by FK. She's also a member of several national and international societies collaborating on advocacy and research in women's health and reproductive health. Fatima, welcome to Srilingo. I'm so grateful to you today.
Thank you so much for having me, Smita.
Thank you, Fatima. Fatima, I have introduced you by saying that your interest, your passion for women's health is deeply inspired by your struggles with infertility. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how it felt when you discovered that?
Like with many women, I think, it's not something that you ever envision for yourself. When you say, I never thought it would be me, then it does happen. And before you know it, you find yourself struggling with it for a number of years. And not just infertility. I think in my journey, it was struggling with infertility. And only through infertility did I find out that I had endometriosis, for which I suffered for over 8 years worth, undiagnosed. And so I think that journey was actually to then really deal with the infertility and your chronic condition all at once. And speaking about infertility, we always say it's for me, I think it's where hope meets heartache and heartache meets hope, because it really is after failure, disappointment after disappointment. You always have to pick yourself up and look for that glimmer of hope.
Fatima, infertility, by and large, you are in Johannesburg, I'm in India, but we are both women. Infertility, by and large, whether it is your society or my society, is filled with a lot of shame, because a woman feels that she is not able to reproduce, which society makes, a big issue about. Whereas in today's day and age, because infertility is a concern that has been going on for so many years, and, through technology, through innovations, science has been able to give us many other options. Surrogacy is one, right? But I don't know why, although these options exist, why there are so many hindrances when it comes to accepting these. Is it because, Fatima, there is just inherent shame with this?
Oh, most definitely. There's a lot of stigma. And I think the more stigma and judgment that is placed on women with infertility, the more it forces them to be silent, you know. And inherently, infertility is a medical condition.
Correct.
But I think with all of the stigma, we have almost pushed it towards being a personal failure. And if I had to look at shame or stigma for myself, I think I've had both overt and subtle wounds in this arena. And I've had it all. From comments about you're too thin, you need to eat more burgers to fall pregnant, as if infertility hinges on fast food, to comments about you work too hard, perhaps if you didn't work too hard, you'd fall pregnant. But what people didn't realize is that for me, I channel my grief and my pain through my work. Everyone needs to find that one thing to keep them sane through this journey, because it really is a painful and isolated journey. And for me, that was my lifeline. That's what kept me sane. And the moment I was idle, the moment I was in an environment where I was idle, those moments were filled with torment for me. And I mean, then there were the comments which were more well intended, but hurtful ones. For example, try harder, put in more effort, you know. And I think what many people don't understand is that you see an infertile person going out into the world with a smile on their face, doing everything you are doing. But what they don't realize is what happens behind closed doors, you know, where these people put every ounce of yourself, we put every ounce of ourselves into trying to fall pregnant. You know, many people would say infertility comes with great expense, whereas with other people, it comes freely, you know. And I think many don't understand it, and if you haven't been through it, you wouldn't understand really the struggles that come with it. And when we talk about it, you know, even IVF, like you spoke about the fact that there are so many options, but people just perceive these options as, oh, go and have IVF, make a baby in a lab. And it's not that simple, you know. Drawing from my experience, I've been through not one, but three IVF sessions. And it involves multiple injections per day. It involves multiple trips to your doctor in terms of 7 a.m. visits for scans. It involves last minute procedures, for example, to drain a cyst. It involves pumping yourself with such large doses of hormonal therapy that at some point you do not know who you are anymore. Who is this person in my body any longer? And you in and over and above that, you have to deal with the painful side effects, which really are enormous, you know. And then it brings with it the financial burden. You know, all of this just for a chance, just for a glimmer of hope at trying to fall pregnant, you know. And then people would say, you're not doing enough. So people don't realize that these type of comments just further add to the frustration. And it just pushes you further into isolation, you know, as if infertility is not tough enough to deal with on your own, you know. So yes, I have had my share of stigmas and judgments, and I think I think there is still a lot of stigma and shame that surrounds infertility.
You are an educated woman, Fatma. If educated women feel like this, imagine what non-educated women must be going through. I mean, their shame, like you said, you know, that you channelized whatever you were feeling into your work. And every time you had that idle moment is when all those things came rushing back. But for somebody who's never been to school, never been to college, never been to university, never had the opportunity to work outside her house, if she suffers from something like this, imagine being surrounded by people the entire day, 24 hours, and being told that eat burgers, you'll fall pregnant, try harder, you'll fall pregnant, maybe you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. I mean, the frustration is so much. But here, one thing I want to ask you, Fatima, that yes, sometimes it's not possible to convince the entire family about how you feel. But do you think if two people who are in a relationship, a husband and a wife, if they are able to come to an understanding, the journey becomes easier for the woman?
Yes, most definitely, you know, and just to add to the burdens, infertility places that relationship burden, you know, that relational burden between spouses, you know. And I think it's very, very important at that level, at all instances, to really communicate to each other, and not just to communicate about how you feel about going through, for example, certain procedures or assisted reproductive technologies, but also about how the infertility makes you feel. And, you know, I tell many women that you are allowed to feel this way. You know, it's a medical condition, and it's not your fault, but you will feel like it's your fault. And the peer pressure and society will make you feel even more like it's your fault. And I think on a relationship level, There needs to be the communication of how I'm feeling, and when you are feeling down, just speak about it, just getting it off your shoulder. It makes a significant difference. And then also really to speak about the options that you have and what you feel you would like to pursue in terms of infertility. You know, uh, women going through infertility treatments, it's really tough on the woman. It's also tough on the men, and I think men also don't usually verbalize their emotions. But I think on all levels, there just needs to be utter and complete communication with no veils drawn, no matter what you're feeling and when you're feeling. You need to sit down and say, this is how I'm feeling. I can't, and when you need to take a break from those treatments, do it because it's traumatic. Just doing a cycle of IVF is a really traumatic experience on all levels. It's this this supposed to be the most natural and the most fundamental desire to parenthood, but it can really feel like a relentless and uphill struggle. And only you that are in it will truly understand. So yes, when communication, between spouses or your partner, I really think that there has to be communication all the time. Um, in terms of speaking to family and making them understand, I always tell women, do it when you are ready. It's not easy to address the topic. So deal with it yourself first. And you don't owe it to anybody. You don't owe any explanations to anybody, because it's something that you need to deal with yourself. And when you are ready, and if you are ready to disclose that I am struggling with this, this is how it makes me feel. This is what I have done or intend on doing, you know, it does make it easier if people understand these processes and what it involves. I mean, just with IVF, I've had so many women come to me and say, you know, I don't feel comfortable telling people that I'm undergoing IVF. I feel like I'll be judged. I feel there's so much stigma around it. And I say to them, if you don't feel comfortable speaking about it, you don't have to. But if you do speak about it, people will be able to understand better what it entails and what you are going through, and they'll be able to be there for you better. I mean, just in terms of IVF, I think one of the reasons why many women choose not to disclose that they're undergoing such treatments is the physical strain in terms of the medications and the side effects. There's the financial strain that comes with it. There's the emotional toll. Um, and then there's that strain and that pressure that you put on yourself. Number one, you feel like, have I done everything correctly? Your injections are timed, your medications are timed, your scans are timed, and you cannot falter at any moment. So there's all this pressure. And you want to make sure that you don't fail yourself. Number two, you have the pressure of not wanting to fail your partner and disappoint your partner. And then if you choose not to tell family, you're avoiding that extra disappointing that extra circle of people, your family, your friends, your siblings who want to be aunts and uncles, your parents who want to be grandparents. You're just avoiding disappointing another person. And it's okay if you choose not to, you know. And like I said, it's constant disappointments. I think infertility is more than a medical condition. I think it really is a test of strength and a test of being able to still hold on to unwavering hope, despite the countless amounts of disappointments and failures.
Just imagine, Fatima, you and I are sitting so far away right now, but there are a few things that bind women, be it anywhere in the world, all these things that you have mentioned right now. It's happening to women in your part of the world. Just wanted to ask you, Fatima, you are an advocate for women's health. When you educate women
Yes.
about what infertility entails, there are so many things to it, right? First of all, you is acceptance. Second of all is, taking your partner into confidence. Thirdly is figuring out your options when you are ready and if you want to do it at all. But do you at any point educate women that infertility can also be an issue with their partner, their male partner, and not necessary themselves? Because I'll tell you why. In the Indian society, for a long, long time, if a married couple could not produce a child, it was a given that there is some problem with the woman. Nobody thought that it could be a problem with the man. Now, with so much of exposure to information through various sources, especially social media, people are beginning to realize that infertility is gender agnostic. It could be a woman's issue or a man's issue, and nobody really has a control over it because it's a biological issue. Is that something that is prevalent in your part of the world? And do you educate people who come to seek your advice about it?
Yes, most definitely. It is so prevalent, and it's disappointing to see that in today's day and age, we haven't made progress in that arena. You know, I think automatically, like you say, the moment there's an issue, um, it's put on the woman. And more than that, women are very willing. Women will automatically seek help. Is there something wrong with me? I will find out. Women are extremely willing to undergo what they need to undergo. But getting a male to go and see um, the same specialist, to get tested, to see if there may be a problem with him, is really a difficult task. And
Yes,
some women struggle to just get their partner to get tested, you know. And I think it has a lot to do with the societal narratives around the male ego and the male dominance, and
yes,
the fact that you're not male enough if you have a
yes,
problem. Um, and I always try to encourage women to approach their partners in the sense of uh, uh, the medical fraternity and speak about it as a medical condition, and really highlight to them that yes, there may be a problem with me, and I am going to get myself checked out. And just as much as I am going to get myself checked out, and it's not easy either, there's fear, there's so many emotions involved in getting yourself checked out, exactly. And say we're in this together. We both are working towards the same goal. Let's do this together. I'm taking the initiative of getting myself checked out. You should do the same. And perhaps you don't have an issue, and then we know everything is fine. But if I have an issue and you may also have an issue, and if we undergo fertility treatment and only dealing with my issue, number one, we're going to end up with more failures and disappointments, and number two, we're just prolonging the entire process.
correct.
And in many instances, I see that a lot of women will find a problem with herself, and then they'll start undergoing fertility treatments. I mean, only after a few failures, then only will the male partner eventually step in and get themselves tested and find out that there is a male factor in fertility as well that needed to be addressed. And this entire process wouldn't have taken this long if it was addressed at the beginning. So this issue is still an untouched issue. We really need to start tapping into it. And I think we need to open more conversations around these and include men in these conversations.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like you said, Fatma, that men begin to feel that they are not manly enough. So that's hurting their ego. I'm going to tell you a true story. A colleague of mine told me this story that she had a friend who got married, and they were married for 3 years, and mother-in-law was coaxing them to have a child, and the couple was trying, but they were not able to get pregnant. And so the girl, she told her partner that I think that we should both undergo fertility tests in case something is wrong with me or could be wrong with you as well. the husband agreed, and they went through the test, and the results were that the problem lay with the husband and not with the wife. So the mother-in-law comes visiting, and she gets a little angry because they were not listening. Probably she was thinking they are delaying the pregnancy. So she says, I think you have a problem. She tells the daughter-in-law, I think you have a problem. Uh, you need to come with me for a test. Because in the Indian society, Fatma, mostly, I don't know if, not at least in the urban area, but in tier two, tier three cities, if the girl is not able to produce a child within the first 3 to 5 years of her marriage, then, the in-laws can actually go and ask her parents that, did you hide this from us? Like that. So yeah, it can happen. It does happen. So the mother-in-law said that, I think you should come with me for a test. I just want to make sure that everything is all right with you. So she said, just give me a minute. Her husband was in the bedroom. She went to the bedroom, and she told her husband that, this is what your mother is asking me to do. Should I tell her, or will you tell her that this is the problem? So yeah, so he says, okay, I will go. And he tells his mother that she is not the problem here. I need to undergo treatment. And that just shut her up, because it was her son and not the daughter-in-law. So you see the biases that, because for the mother-in-law at
Yes.
that point, it was difficult to accept the fact that something could be wrong with her son. So the whole purpose of having this conversation is that this is not a gender issue. It has been made to look like it is a gender issue for the lack of information. But now that we have advocates like you who are promoting the concept, we should be we should be able to tell people as much as possible that this is nothing to do with gender. This is a human problem. It can happen to anybody. It is not within your control, man or woman. The woman is always not the guilty party here.
Most definitely. I love what you said. It's a human problem,
Yes.
and I think, Smita, um, especially with a lot of our advocacy and our education initiatives, we are more and more trying to involve males in this conversation, because really, the more they understand, the more they'll be willing to stand up and actually say, you know what, this is a medical condition which either I or my partner could contribute towards. So I think really including them in these conversations is absolutely vital.
Infertility and the treatment for infertility, or the acceptance of infertility, and mental health go hand in hand, because one thing that really goes for a toss in situations like this is your mental health. It is a mental health issue. I mean, one branch of mental health should be actually dedicated to people who are suffering or going through infertility. It is not, it is a condition that is beyond their control, just like any other mental health problem. uh, but we don't speak of infertility and mental health in one breath. We just happen to think that, oh, this happens when, oh, sometimes, Fatima, I think people just think that a woman who's going through infertility has so many challenges, within her, at the back of her mind. She's feeling doubtful, she's feeling confused, she's feeling ashamed, she's feeling like a lesser person. All of this could trigger so many mental illnesses, but people sometimes misjudge the person and think she's throwing a tantrum. It could happen to a man also. A woman can, at least with all these biases, the only good thing is the woman can confide in another woman that, this is my problem. For a man to reach that point and at
We
least
don't get
confide
that.
in another man that, this is my problem, I think that's going to be another decade or so, because the shame associated with infertility in men is much, much more than a woman. A woman has already been ostracized for many, many decades and years and thousands of years. Oh, she's an infertile woman. She is bad luck. We should not include her in, happy occasions in the family. Things like that. What about an infertile man? He dies a death every day while being alive, because
Every
you
day.
have that burden on his head that men can have no problems. These are problems that only belong to women.
Yeah, that's so true, Smita. And I think really, like, in terms of person's mental stability, and I think, infertility doesn't go away. And even women who have struggled with infertility, or couples that have struggled with infertility, and have gone on to have children, the trauma of their infertility never leaves them, you know. And I think those struggling with infertility, it never gets easier. I think you learn how to live with it. I think as you get older and that emptiness, that hole actually becomes bigger, and it becomes more difficult to deal with. And I think that is why it's so important for society at large to understand the magnanimity of the mental effects and impacts of infertility, so that the better they understand it, the better of a support structure family and friends and colleagues can be towards infertile couples, and like you mentioned, women will still seek help and seek out through support groups, for example, but men won't. And it's something that definitely needs to address. And I have rarely seen any support groups for men struggling with infertility. And really, it's something that we definitely should look into.
Definitely, Fatma. I think as fellow women, wherever we may be in the world, our what we can do is be kind and spread the message that, if anybody in our immediate family is suffering from this, the first step when these conversations begin, usually on the dining table, the first thing is to step up and say, you know what, it's something beyond her control. Don't talk about it unless she wants to speak about it, because I think that's where the support comes, and that helps the person feel comfortable within immediate family. If you're going to feel comfortable within immediate family, then it gives you the courage to consider this a normal issue in your life and not make it larger than it can be. Like you mentioned, there's a hole, there's an emptiness that never gets full. Maybe sometimes, Fatima, somebody is infertile, but by choice the person wants to be child free. There is a difference between being childless and being child free. Now, a person sometimes, when we are growing up, we look at our parents and we look at the structure of family and we assume that this is going to be us someday. But as you grow up, you evolve and you begin to understand what kind of a life you want to lead. If somebody wants to remain child free, but the society, her immediate family around her, makes her feel that there is an emptiness without having a child, I think, whether she wants to have the child or not is not the problem. The problem is that nobody looks at her as a wholesome person unless she gives birth to a child. So we should, I think, comfort women in our immediate family, saying that whenever you want to, if you want to have a child, really, because and that decision is between a couple. We cannot say, oh, I want to be a grandparent, I want to be an aunt, I want to be an uncle, so you must bear a child. It is the couple's decision. It should not be, I'm not saying only one person should take the decision, but it should be a decision that two people who are living together, who are married to each other, should take that decision. They should not be made to feel lesser for not having a child. What do you think as last words?
Yes, no, definitely, and I think, like we always say, mind your own uterus. I think that is so important, and I think society is a large, right up until, for example, adverts that we see, presenting women who give birth and when they become parents, become mothers, that is the pinnacle of womanhood. And it's giving off the subtle notions and messages that if you haven't conceived and you don't have children, you're incomplete. And I think we need to start changing that completely, and really being, as a support structure for women who choose not to or cannot fall pregnant, to really rather be active listeners rather than pass judgment and lectures and questioning, and rather validate their feelings and their choices that they make. You know, I think in terms of society, we have a long way to go. There are a lot of platforms. There's a lot more discussion, open discussions around infertility, around the difficulties in conceiving. But I think a lot more work needs to be done. I think education on all levels, we need to start maximizing on the use of social media, the use of, for example, um, the technologies that we currently have. And I think we need to really, include all stakeholders, We need to include men. We need to include people that are struggling with infertility, people that are not struggling with infertility, so they understand how to support those that are struggling with it. And then on all levels, in terms of even in the workplace, because really it's something so silent that we need to involve employers in these conversations, so that on a workplace level, a woman that is undergoing infertility has to do it silently. And it really places a large burden on women, working women, during those periods of undergoing, for example, IVF treatments. So I think on all levels, we need to include everybody in these conversations. And knowledge is power. And the more we spread knowledge, the more people understand, we can really start to change the narrative that really it's a medical condition and it really isn't about human failure at all.
Absolutely. So well said, Fatima. I'm as a fellow woman, I'm so proud that, of the kind of work that you're doing, because you are helping women normalize infertility. You're helping women understand the condition. You're helping women feel like an equal to another woman in society. That is, the ultimate goal for people who are undergoing any sort of condition in this regard. I'm so grateful to you, Fatima. Thank you for giving me your time. I hope that people listen to this episode and understand that you in Africa, me in India, or any woman in any other part of the world, there are some matters where we are like together, no matter what, no matter race, culture, whatever. We are all together in things that matter to women. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful to you, and kudos on the kind of work that you're doing, on the kind of message that you're putting out there for women.
Thank you so much for having me, Smita. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope your listeners do too.
Thank you so much, Fatima.
Thank you.